Bonjour tout le monde. Premièrement, je tiens à vous remercier d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. J'aimerais aussi prendre un instant pour reconnaître que nous sommes tous réunis aujourd'hui sur le territoire traditionnel non cédé du peuple Mi'kmaq, un territoire qui est couvert par les traités de paix et d'amitié. J'aimerais aussi prendre un instant pour remercier Iki Imbo et puis toute son équipe à Roche-Papier-Ciseaux de nous avoir accueillis aussi chaleureusement aujourd'hui. On a eu une belle visite avec les enfants dans ces garderies, puis nous avons bien hâte à continuer de travailler avec eux. Today, I have to say I'm extremely pleased and honored to welcome here in Moncton my friend and colleague, Minister Chrystia Freeland. Minister is here today in Moncton with me. We had the opportunity of visiting this wonderful child care facility. I have to say as well that Minister Freeland has been instrumental in making sure that we have affordable child care for all Canadians. And I'm extremely pleased that we were able to welcome her here today for her to be able to meet with the children and to speak with the educators that provide really important work to the kids that they serve day in and day out. So without further ado, Minister Freeland, again, really honored to have you with us here in Moncton and looking forward to spending a bit of time with you today. So thank you.
Okay. I'll give you a hug, Ginette. Okay. Je tiens tout d'abord à souligner que nous sommes réunis sur les territoires traditionnels des Mi'kmaqi et des Abenaki. I am so happy to be here in Moncton, in beautiful New Brunswick. It is great to be here with my wonderful colleague, Ginette. We've worked together a lot now. And I have to say, there is really nothing that gives me more pleasure than spending time at Canada's wonderful early learning and childcare centers, than spending time with the amazing, hard-working early learning and childcare educators who take care of our kids and teach our kids. They are raising the rising generation of Canadians. And of course, to spend time with a really great group of young Canadians. They even tolerated my French. I really just had a wonderful time here at Roche-Papier-Ciseaux. When our government first announced our plan to make high-quality, affordable childcare a reality across Canada, it was welcomed by a lot of people. But to be honest, there was also a lot of skepticism. And that skepticism was justifiable because Canadian politicians had been making promises for nearly 5 decades to establish a national system of early learning and childcare. But the commitment that I was so proud to make in our 2021 budget is no longer just a promise. It is becoming a reality. The federal government has now signed agreements with every single province and territory on early learning and childcare. And today, fees here in New Brunswick have been reduced by an average of 50%, saving families in this amazing province an average of $3,900 this year per child. And I met some kids who were in a family. There are some families here where there are 2 kids in the child care center together. And New Brunswick is on track to reach fees of just $10 a day by the end of 2026. Nous créons également davantage de places en garderie, dont 3400 ici au Nouveau-Brunswick d'ici 2026. De plus, le Premier ministre a annoncé en juin que notre gouvernement fournira une somme supplémentaire de 625 millions de dollars pour aider les provinces et les territoires à investir dans des structures qui rendront les services de garde plus accessibles dans les communautés mal desservies, y compris les communautés rurales et éloignées, ainsi que les quartiers à coûts élevés ou à faible revenu ici au Nouveau-Brunswick. Cela permettra notamment de financer les efforts déployés par les provinces et les territoires pour créer des places en garderie dans les communautés qui n'en ont pas suffisamment à l'heure actuelle. Ensuring that families have access to affordable childcare is, of course, an important social policy. It's an important new part of Canada's national social welfare net. But you know what? This is also economic policy. This is feminist economic policy in action. Studies show that every dollar invested in early childhood education generates between $1.50 and nearly $3 in activity for the broader economy. Nearly 950,000 more Canadians are employed today than were before the pandemic. That includes a record 85.7% labor force participation rate in July for Canadian women in their prime working years. And that is supported by our early learning and childcare system, now nationwide. This level, 85.7%, is a record high for Canada, and it compares to just 77.5% in the US. Now, Ginette and I were talking earlier today, and she talked to me about how strong the economy is here in Moncton and how labor shortages are a real issue. Making it possible for mothers to work is the best answer to labor shortages, and that is what our childcare system is doing already. I am so glad, really, truly, it's a pleasure, a battery recharging activity to be here today, to see our plan in action, and to better understand what more we can do to help working mothers and fathers like those here in Moncton, and to help the great kids that we met today. Because our child care plan is so important for communities like Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe, communities with growing families and growing businesses. Au Canada, l'inflation s'est établie à 3,3% le mois dernier, ce qui représente une baisse par rapport au sommet du 8,1% atteint en juin 2022. La croissance des salaires, qui s'est établie à 5%, a été supérieure à l'inflation en juillet, comme c'est le cas depuis 6 mois maintenant, et notre taux de chômage actuel est l'un des plus bas de notre histoire, soit 5,5%. Depuis 2015, notre gouvernement a aidé à sortir 2,3 millions de Canadiens et Canadiennes de la pauvreté, dont un demi-million d'enfants grâce à l'allocation canadienne pour enfants. In 2016, 12.9% of Canadians were living in poverty. By 2021, that number was down to 7.4%. That's a real accomplishment for our whole country. And from an enhanced Canada Workers Benefit to a new Canadian dental care plan, we have strengthened the social safety net that millions of Canadians count on, all while ensuring that Canada maintains the lowest deficit and debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Our economic plan is fiscally responsible, and it's delivering real results for people here in Moncton and across New Brunswick. Making sure that kids have the best start in life is at the heart of our plan. And I can see that a lot of kids in Moncton are off to a great start here at Roche, Papier, Ciseaux. Thank you very much, et je suis prête à répondre à vos questions.
OK, bon après-midi. Merci d'être venu. On va commencer avec une question et une suivi. If you could just come up to the microphone and state your name and news outlet before asking your question, that would be much appreciated.
Bonjour Madame Freeland, nous MCNJK Radio-Canada. Alors, vous m'excuserez, ma question n'a pas à voir avec votre déclaration d'aujourd'hui. Mais je voudrais savoir qu'est-ce qui justifie la décision de votre gouvernement d'émettre un nouvel avertissement de voyage pour les gens de la communauté LGBTQ qui se rendent aux États-Unis?
Merci pour la question. Les avertissements que notre gouvernement met pour les Canadiens qui voyagent à l'étranger ne sont pas politiques. Ce sont les avertissements décidés par les professionnels dans le ministère d'Affaires mondiales et ils jugent la situation dans plusieurs pays du monde. Pour eux, c'est important, c'est une partie de leur travail, de garder quelle est la situation dans plusieurs pays du monde et d'avertir des groupes spécifiques de Canadiens s'il y a une situation qui peut être difficile pour eux.
Alors, vous dites que ce n'est pas une décision politique, mais malgré tout, c'est quand même notre voisin le plus proche, notre plus grand partenaire. Est-ce que vous ne craignez pas de les froisser, j'ai envie de dire, et justement que cette décision affecte négativement nos relations diplomatiques?
En tant que ministre dans notre gouvernement, j'ai eu l'occasion de travailler avec des gouvernements divers dans les États-Unis, avec des leaders au niveau fédéral, au niveau des États, au niveau municipal, au niveau de la législature. J'ai travaillé beaucoup avec nos voisins. Pour notre gouvernement, pour chaque gouvernement canadien, travailler avec nos voisins et savoir comment travailler avec nos voisins est une priorité, doit être une priorité et sera toujours une priorité. Et je pense que notre gouvernement a démontré que nous sommes capables de le faire. Et pour nous, la priorité toujours dans toute notre politique à l'étranger, c'est de protéger les Canadiens et Canadiennes, de protéger tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. On continuera de le faire.
Hi, Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Shane McGee, CBC. Why has your government issued the travel advisory for LGBTQ plus people to the United States? And was this something you discussed with President Biden, or your government discussed with President Biden first?
So, you know, as someone who has had the real privilege of serving as Canada's foreign minister, I know that our travel advisories are done very professionally. We have professionals in the government whose job is to look carefully around the world and to monitor whether there are particular dangers to particular groups of Canadians. That's their job, and it's the right thing to do. When it comes to the United States specifically, I have personal experience of dealing with a diversity of U.S. administrations and of dealing with American leaders at all levels of government, in all branches of government, and with Americans who represent diverse groups across the country, whether it is business or labor or civic organizations. And that's because our government understands, as every Canadian government needs to understand, that one of the principal responsibilities of the federal government is to understand how to work with our U.S. neighbor. I think our government has shown that that's a priority for us and that we work hard at it and that we're able to manage that relationship regardless of the choices that the people of the United States make. Even as we work hard on that government-to-government relationship, every Canadian government, very much including our government, needs to put at the center of everything we do the interests and the safety of every single Canadian and of every single group of Canadians. That's what we're doing now. That's what we're always going to do.
President Biden before that decision, though? And I did have a different question, but just to clarify that.
I've commented in English and French on that, and that's all I have to say.
The National Post and Investigative Journalism Foundation are reporting prospective Superior Court applicants may have been paid to attend Liberal events in order to meet with cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister. Did this happen, and what's your response to this report?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with that report.
Minister, welcome to Moncton. I'm Alan Cochran from the Times and Transcript newspaper here. Tomorrow is Drug Overdose Awareness Day. And here in Moncton we have situations where we have a number of people who with drug addiction issues, homelessness, and mental health issues, which all seem to turn into one big thing for a lot of people. It is a provincial government responsibility, but what does the federal government do to assist the provinces and perhaps the individual organizations that deal with this on a daily basis?
Well, thank you for the question. And I said at the beginning of this conversation how glad I am to have the chance to spend some time with Ginette. She's an important colleague, and as people here in Moncton know, these are issues that she cares about a lot and is very expert in and has worked on for a long time in her life. So she and I talked about this, and she talked to me a lot about the specific challenges that people are facing here in Moncton. And what I'll say is, you know, our government has put forward significant support for dealing with addiction in budget after budget. We do know that we need to work with the province and we need to work with the municipality, and I'll have a chance to meet with the mayor of Moncton later today. And, you know, I agree with the premise of your question that this is an urgent challenge here in Moncton. It's an urgent challenge in many cities across Canada. We're working hard. I do agree that we need to do more, and something Ginette and I talked about is really the importance of providing wraparound support for, you know, some of the most vulnerable members of our communities.
Thank you.
Hi, Alana Pickrell with CTV News. Big announcement today for parents and families on getting more affordability, but what is the government doing for just the average Canadian when it comes to making living more affordable?
Well, thanks for talking about families. And I do think families with young children are average Canadians too. So let me start there, right? Like I am such a believer in investing in families and investing in Canadian children. And that's why I am here to just underscore the value of our investments in early learning and childcare, and to thank the people, some of whom are here, who actually do the work and make it happen. And I do want to emphasize early learning and childcare. It is like this, it's this triple whammy in terms of the economic benefit. It does deliver real affordability for young families. $3,900 right now per child in savings. That is a very, very big deal for families. And I have heard from families across the country who say, you know, their childcare costs have been like a second mortgage, and this is really needed relief. So that's benefit number one. Benefit number two is on the labor force side. And really, the labor force impact of our early learning and childcare program is already measurable. That's a really big deal. Social policies rarely can be measured in statistics so quickly, and having mothers be able to be in the workforce, mothers of young children, that's something Canada needs right now. And I really want to emphasize the value of that. And then finally, the value for the kids. That's the most important thing. And I was delighted to see the amazing care that the children here are getting. Having said that, childcare is an important economic policy, and it's an important way to support the cost of living for Canadians. We understand that the cost of living is a really big challenge for people in Moncton and for people across New Brunswick. We absolutely get that. And we're providing other forms of support. The grocery rebate delivered at the beginning of this month, nearly $500 for a family. 11 million Canadians got that support. Now, I don't want to claim that that support covered the cost of everything, but real support for people who need it. The Canada Workers Benefit is now being delivered in advance payments, and that is support that goes to the hardest working, least well paid people among us. More than, you know, around $2,600 for a family in support. Again, not covering everything, but providing real meaningful support to people who need it.
Okay, so you talked a lot about families there again, which again is great. But what about the people that are choosing not to have a family because they don't feel like they can afford it anymore? What about the single households or just the couple households? What are they getting in terms of support from the government?
Well, the grocery rebate and the Canada Workers Benefit go to all Canadians. I listed numbers. I gave you the figures that a family of four would get, but those are benefits that all apply to all Canadians. They're determined in the case of the grocery rebate by your income level, and that is 11 million Canadians got it. Real meaningful support to a lot of people, the most vulnerable among us. Canada Worker Benefit, which is a program I am hugely supportive of because it supports people who are working, people who are making, our grocery stores operate, people who are making all the services across every city happen. And a lot of those people, you're quite right, they work really hard and the cost of living is still a challenge. The Canada Worker Benefit, it used to be paid after the year was done, but we know that people are struggling to pay their bills at the end of the month. And so I am glad that the the Canada Worker Benefit is now being paid in advance. And, again, Alana, you ask an important question, and I do not want to overstate what our support measures can do. I know that the cost of living is a challenge, and even the people receiving these supports are still feeling strain. But I do want to emphasize that those measures are there. They're targeted at the people who need help the most, and they're providing some help right now when people need it.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks very much, everyone.
Okay, merci beaucoup.